A year has slipped by since Evelyn Harper vanished from our sleepy little town of Cedar Hollow. The former HOA president left without a whisper, and most folks around here seem to think the neighborhood's finally found some peace. I'm out in my backyard on this chilly November morning, tending to my modest vegetable patch, the same spot where Evelyn used to stand, clipboard in hand, scribbling fines for grass she claimed was a quarter-inch too long. My neighbor, Mrs. Larson, waves as she walks her labradoodle, but her smile carries that awkward edge. Once, she'd invite me over for Sunday potlucks. Now, she looks at me like I'm some kind of enigma, unsure how to bridge the gap. As I water my zucchini, 9-year-old Liam from across the street sprints over, his face scrunched with that curious intensity kids have when they're piecing together grown-up secrets. "Mr. Bennett, why doesn't Ms. Harper ever visit her old place?" he asks, kicking at a pebble. "My dad says she moved super far away." I pause, the hose dripping in my hand, and glance at Evelyn's old house. The new owners, a young couple from Seattle, have repainted the trim and swapped her prized azaleas for low-maintenance succulents. Down the block, a for sale sign sways on the lawn of her former right-hand man on the HOA board. The memories of what went down still feel like a fever dream, as if I stumbled into someone else's drama. Evelyn Harper, the woman who ruled Cedar Hollow for 4 years with her sleek auburn bob and garish yellow sundresses, disappeared after the feds wrapped up their probe. Word around town is she's holed up in Arizona now, answering phones at a chiropractor's office, living in a cramped studio apartment. The irony isn't lost on Mesh, stuck in the kind of simple life she used to sneer at me for embracing. But last night, as I checked my mailbox under the glow of a street lamp, I found something that sent a shiver down my spine. An unmarked envelope with a single, handwritten line. "Thank you for keeping quiet about Belize. 3 years ago, in October, I thought I'd found my dream retirement spot. After 27 years in the Navy, I wanted a quiet corner of the world to grow tomatoes and tinker with my '89 Ford Mustang, a relic from my early service days. The house was humble but cozy, and Cedar Hollow seemed tranquil until I met Evelyn Harper, the HOA's self-crowned dictator. She was the picture of petty power, polished nails, a fake smile, and an unshakable belief that her rules governed every inch of this neighborhood. The first fine came on a Monday, printed on crisp HOA letterhead with Evelyn's signature scrawled in bold ink. $200 for a birdhouse I'd hung on my porch, deemed visually inconsistent with community standards. I paid it without a fuss, a reflex from years of following orders, even the absurd ones. But Evelyn wasn't done. The next week, a citation arrived for my Navy flag, slightly frayed at the edges from years of use, flown on a non-approved date. November brought a notice for my lawn being a hair too tall. By December, I was ordered to repaint my mailbox in one of the HOA's approved shades, all variations of gray. Each visit from Evelyn followed the same script. She'd show up in a blinding yellow dress, her tablet glowing like a badge of authority. "Jack," she'd say in that syrupy tone that made my skin crawl, "we appreciate your service, but Cedar Hollow has standards. You can't live like you're still on a naval base." What grated most wasn't the endless nitpicking, it was the double standards. Evelyn's cousin lived a few blocks away, his yard a tangled mess, yet he never got a single fine. Her best friend, Clara Monroe, ran an unlicensed bakery out of her garage, but that flew under the radar. Meanwhile, old Mr. Thompson got slapped with a fine for his car being parked an inch off center, and the Garcia family was cited for their kids' skateboards leaning against their fence. I started jotting down every move Evelyn made as HOA president. Over a year, she'd raked in $60,000 in fines, 4 times the previous year's totals. The money was supposedly for community upgrades, but the park's swings were rusted, the clubhouse's roof leaked, and the streetlights flickered like they were on their last legs. When I asked about the budget at a meeting, Evelyn brushed me off with a smirk. "Jack, finances are complicated. Maybe focus on keeping your yard compliant." The breaking point came when Evelyn targeted my Mustang. That car wasn't just metal and rubber, it was my anchor, bought after my first tour, a reminder of surviving the toughest years after losing my wife, Hawkins. Evelyn called it a neighborhood eyesore and demanded I remove it. That night, I lay awake, the old anger from my younger days bubbling up. But I wasn't that reckless kid anymore. I'd just returned from a trip to the Naval Cemetery in Annapolis, a ritual to honor fallen friends. When I pulled into my driveway that Friday, a red foreclosure notice was taped to my door. I owed $9,200 in unpaid fines, and since I'd been away and missed a court date, the HOA had a legal judgment to seize my home. Within hours, Evelyn arrived with a sheriff's deputy, 2 hired security guards, and a smug grin, dressed in a new yellow dress like she was heading to a gala. "Jack," she said, her voice oozing false pity, "this was inevitable. Your disregard for our rules and your attitude have consequences." I stood there in my faded jeans and navy t-shirt, looking every bit the washed-up sailor she thought I was. "I've paid every monthly fee on time," I said, voice tight. She tapped her tablet, scrolling through my alleged infractions. "Monthly fees, yes, but not the penalties. Frankly, Jack, your whole vibe clashes with our community's vision." Then she said the words that hit harder than any combat wound. "Look at you, Jack. A broke old sailor on a pension, driving that rusty junker, probably drowning your sorrows in cheap whiskey. Did you really think you belonged in a place like Cedar Hollow? This is for people with ambition, people who've actually made something of themselves." She sneered at my Mustang like it was garbage. "At least we'll be rid of that blight." I felt a rage I hadn't known since my service days, my fists balling up, ready to lose it. But then I heard my late wife Emily's voice in my head, reminding me real strength is restraint. Kids watch from their yards. Parents filming like this was reality TV. Little Liam broke free from his mom, hugging my leg. "Mr. Bennett doesn't have to leave," he yelled. Evelyn nudged him aside with a manicured hand. "Stay back, sweetie. Men like him can be unstable." That moment laid bare everything wrong with her. She'd hurt a child to flex her power. The deputy looked uneasy, knowing this was wrong, but paperwork is paperwork. I made a choice that stunned everyone. Instead of fighting, I packed a bag with my medals and Emily's photos, loaded my Mustang, and drove off without a word. Evelyn's final taunt echoed. "Running away, Jack? Where's that Navy grit? Or were you just a glorified paper pusher?" That night, in a diner parking lot, I called a number I'd sworn to leave behind. "Colonel Rivera." "Jack Bennett," he answered, voice gruff with surprise. "Thought you were a ghost. Calling at 2 a.m.? This better be good." I laid out the situation like a mission brief. Rivera's tone shifted. "Jack, you're not just some retiree. You ran counterintelligence for 2 decades. If this HOA queen thinks she can scam you, she's in for a rude awakening." He connected me with Rachel Olson, a real estate lawyer and daughter of my neighbor Mrs. Larson. Rachel had been tracking Evelyn's schemes and uncovered a cesspool of fraud. Evelyn wasn't just finding people set up shell companies to funnel HOA funds through fake contracts, rigging foreclosures to sell homes cheap to investors while pocketing kickbacks. Our plan was surgical. I'd play the broken veteran begging for a second chance while Rachel built a legal case. I wore a wire, legal under state law, and swallowed my pride to let Evelyn gloat. Rivera tipped off a Treasury Department contact, putting Evelyn on the Fed's radar. He warned me, "This isn't just a suburban bully. If she's laundering money, she's tied to people who don't play nice." I knew the risks but wasn't backing down. For a month, I lived in a budget motel, studying Evelyn's operation, rehearsing the role of a humbled man. When I returned to Cedar Hollow, I walked into the HOA meeting with a cheap suit and a potted fern, looking defeated. "Evelyn," I said, voice low, "I'm sorry for challenging you. Can we start over?" The room went quiet, phones out, waiting for a show. Evelyn ate it up, her yellow dress practically glowing as she accepted my apology. "Jack, I'm glad you've learned your place. Your foreclosure was for the greater good." For weeks, I was her errand boy scrubbing the clubhouse, painting swings, sorting her files. She loved parading me around, her guard down as I played the part. One night, while filing violation notices, she bragged over wine about her profitable HOA, showing me bank statements. The account had ballooned from $15,000 to $250,000 in 2 years. When I asked how, she smirked about smart property management. At a private dinner, drunk on her own ego, she spilled more, detailing how she targeted vulnerable homeowners' widows, single vets, struggling families for foreclosures. She even showed me contracts with elite properties, revealing her cut from each deal. Every word was recorded, every paper photographed. The final nail came when she flashed Cayman Islands bank statements offshore accounts for a nonprofit HOA, screamed money laundering. At her celebration dinner, flaunting a new Mercedes bought with consulting fees, the doorbell rang. I opened it to FBI agent Laura Mitchell, Treasury's Daniel Cruz, and local cops, badges and warrants in hand. "We're here for Evelyn Harper," Mitchell said coolly. Evelyn's wine glass shattered as she stammered, "Jack, what's this?" Mitchell nodded to me. "Mr. Bennett's been assisting our financial crimes unit. He's not just a veteran's ex-CIA, a money laundering expert. You picked the wrong target." The evidence was airtight. Recordings of her boasting about kickbacks, offshore accounts, rigged bylaws, and targeted foreclosures totaling $2.8 million. As cuffs snapped on, Evelyn pleaded, "Jack, why didn't you tell me who you were? We could have been partners." I looked at the woman who'd preyed on this town, stealing homes and pride. "Evelyn, I just wanted to be Jack, the guy with a garden and an old car. You decided that wasn't enough." As they led her away, I added, "The most dangerous enemy is the one who doesn't want to fight." Cedar Hollow buzzed with the news. Neighbors brought apologies and pies, but the months of being shunned left scars. The probe widened, toppling elite properties and 2 town officials tied to Evelyn's payouts. Stolen funds were returned, and the HOA got new oversight. Evelyn traded her dresses for prison orange, her house and car seized, her name ruined. Justice came, but it cost me dredging up a past I'd buried. As I sit in my garden now, watching dusk settle over a quieter town, I wonder if it was worth it. Liam waves from his window, a reminder that maybe one kid learned something. The quiet guy next door might just be the one who fights for what's right. What do you think? Did Jack do the right thing by taking down Evelyn? Or should he have walked away? Was justice worth exposing his past? Should neighbors who stayed silent share the blame? Drop your thoughts below, hit that like button, and subscribe for more stories that'll keep you talking.